In a world that runs on data, on tech, on all things digital, there's this one ancient, kind of impractical metal that's quietly beating everything. So today, we're going to dig into the golden paradox. Why are we still so obsessed with a metal you can't really build with, can't power anything with, and yet we want it more than ever?
I mean, really think about it. We've got crypto, instant payments, entire economies built on lines of code. So the real question is, why is gold, literally the oldest money we have, not just sticking around, but absolutely thriving? Well, the answer is way more fascinating than you'd think.
All right, let's just start with the raw numbers, because they tell a pretty wild story. Say you invested $100 25 years ago in a fund that tracks the world's biggest, most successful companies. You'd have about $750 today. Not bad, right? A solid return. But here's the kicker. That same $100, if you'd put it into gold, it would have grown even more. This supposedly useless metal has been outperforming the giants of modern industry.
And this isn't some historical fluke. We're talking right now. Gold has been hitting all-time highs, pushing past $4,000 for a single troy ounce. And remember, that's for a little piece of metal that weighs only 31 grams. It's a huge signal about what's happening in the real world today.
Now, here's the other side of that coin. Back in the 70s, the US basically cut the dollar loose from gold. And ever since then, it's been a slow, steady decline for government-issued money against the metal. The British pound? It's lost 20 times its value compared to gold. The US dollar? 8 times. Even the super-stable Swiss franc has lost 2/3 of its purchasing power. This chart right here, it's a brutal, honest look at where real value has held its ground.
But our thing with gold, it's deeper than just money. It's almost primal. Just picture our ancestors trying to survive out on the savannah. What's the one thing they absolutely needed to find every single day? Water. And from a distance, how would you spot it? You'd look for that glint of sunlight hitting the surface. That instinct, that deep-seated attraction to things that shine, it's literally hardwired into our brains.
Okay, so if it isn't just a shiny object syndrome, what is it that makes gold so special? Well, to figure that out, we have to go on a little hunt for the perfect form of money.
Seriously, let's do a thought experiment. You have to reboot civilization. Your job is to pick just one element to be the universal currency for everyone. What would it need to be? Where would you even start looking?
Well, the periodic table is the perfect place to start, right? It's a list of everything. So let's just run a quick process of elimination. First off, all the gases are out. Obviously, you can't make a coin out of air. The reactive metals? No way. They corrode or literally burst into flames. Terrible for your wallet. And the radioactive elements down at the bottom, they're literally decaying over time. So, nope, gone.
Okay, that leaves us with about 30 stable, solid metals. But we can narrow this down way more. Things like iron and copper, they're just too common to be really valuable. Plus, they have that annoying habit of rusting. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have elements like osmium, which are so incredibly rare, they're mostly found in meteorites. Yeah, you can't exactly build an economy on space rocks.
So after all of that, we are left with just 5 contenders, the precious metals. But even here we can make some cuts. Palladium and rhodium, they're out. They weren't even discovered until the 1800s, so they completely missed the boat. Platinum's a fantastic metal, but its melting point is insanely high, way too hot for ancient furnaces to even dream of handling.
And then there were 2. This brings us to the final showdown, silver versus gold. For centuries, they were neck and neck. But silver has a couple of major flaws. It tarnishes, and frankly, there's just a lot more of it. Gold, on the other hand, it never corrodes, it's chemically boring in the best possible way. It's perfectly rare, and it's easy to work with. It's the Goldilocks element. Everything about it is just right.
So we've figured out that gold's unique chemistry makes it pretty much ideal for money. But it's the rarity, the scarcity, that really sealed the deal and made it a global standard.
This is probably one of my all-time favorite facts about gold. If you could somehow gather every single piece of gold ever mined in all of human history and melt it all down into one giant block, it would make a cube just 22 meters on each side. It would basically fit inside a 7-story building. Just think about that. A tiny volume worth a mind-boggling $30 trillion. Okay, let's make that scarcity even more personal. If you took all that gold in the world and divided it up equally among every single person on Earth, we would each get about 30 grams. That's it. That's maybe enough for 6 wedding rings. That incredible rarity is absolutely fundamental to its value.
And this perfect storm of ideal properties and extreme rarity led directly to the gold standard.
The idea was actually pretty simple, but it was powerful. A country's paper money wasn't just paper. It was a promise. It was a receipt that you could, at any time, trade in for a specific amount of real physical gold. This created trust, it created stability, and it really greased the wheels of global trade.
But why did this all kick off in the 1800s? Well, for the first time in history, there was finally enough gold to go around. You had these massive gold rushes in California, in Australia, in South Africa that unearthed huge new supplies. All this new gold flooding the market made it possible for countries all over the world to adopt it as the universal backbone for their entire economies.
So gold's chemistry and its rarity made it the perfect foundation for the global economy. But hey, the gold standard is long gone. So what is gold's job today? Well, that brings us to its most important modern role, being the ultimate safe haven.
Just look at this chart. It shows a massive shift in global trust. For decades, the world's central banks stored their wealth in U.S. government debt. That was considered the safest asset on the planet. But look at what's happened since 2022. The trend has completely flipped on its head. The most powerful financial institutions in the world are now buying physical gold. In a world full of uncertainty, they're choosing a tangible metal over a financial promise.
Now, let's zoom in from countries to people. And this is a pretty stark picture of how wealth is distributed around the globe. Less than 1% of the population are dollar millionaires, but they control a gigantic slice of the world's total assets.
And that slice is worth $226 trillion. Now, when you're managing that much wealth, your number one priority isn't just making more money, it's protecting what you have. You need a place to store that wealth that can't be printed away, can't be easily taken, and is seen as valuable everywhere, by everyone, no matter what happens to governments or currencies. You need gold.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the ultimate reason for owning gold. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about making sure you don't become poor. It's insurance against the absolute worst-case scenario.
And this isn't just some theory. This is real life. After the horrific 2004 tsunami in Indonesia, entire villages were just gone. A lot of people had no access to banks. No official help was coming. But what they did have was their family's gold jewelry passed down for generations. And it was that gold, those simple chains, those bracelets, that they used to trade for food, for building supplies, and ultimately to rebuild their entire lives from scratch.
And that brings us right back to our paradox. In a future that feels more and more digital and more uncertain, where does true value really live? Is it in a line of code on a server somewhere that could be deleted or corrupted in an instant? Or is it in a physical element, literally forged in the heart of an exploding star, that you can actually hold in your hand? It seems like the world's central banks, its wealthiest people, and the survivors of disaster have already made their choice.